Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday evening. It is our pleasure to introduce to you the Vaudacity Network's fresh server of puns and classical live piano music. Ladies and gentlemen, David Benjamin.
Hey guys. we're lacking in fancy stuff tonight because a certain Sam had the audacity to not be around tonight. He had some vacation or something stupid he's doing. I don't know. Excuse me. I've got the chat on my screen over here. I had to pause the video feed, otherwise it's going to be extremely distracting. So, let's see, who is... Forget the microphone's over here, but my iPad's over there. So, who all is in the chat? Say hi, Melissa Hunter. How you doing? And hi, Mom. And I'm assuming Dad is there too. And once again, he better be. And let's see. Hi, Pam. Hi, Christy and Michelle. And I said hi, Melissa already. And hi, Amanda, because she's watching from over there. And hi, Lucy, who's thoroughly ignoring me. So, what I have for you guys tonight is a program that has been, I won't say cobbled together, it's more of a fallback option. We've had an incredibly busy last couple of weeks, and we were, as some of you may have seen on my Facebook photos that I posted, we were out of town this past weekend, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about or really work on a program. But then I started thinking that I've been meaning to do a show or two of my own compositions for a while now, and this seemed as good an opportunity as any to do it, focusing of course on the mostly slightly easier pieces due to lack of preparation time. I might throw in a couple of others. Let's kind of see how I'm doing. But I thought I'd play a bunch of my shorter pieces. I probably actually have about 3 shows worth of compositions that I can share. So for this one, I think I'm going to start off, I'm going to go chronologically, and we're going to rewind the clock about 25 years. We're going back to 1996. This was my freshman year of college at UC Davis. I was a music major. I don't remember if I've said that on my show before, but as was Amanda, actually. We met at Davis a number of years after I graduated, but we both went there, both music majors there. And I was initially, what, Amanda?
I said just years apart.
She says, just years apart. Years and years and years. Okay, she didn't add all the extra years. That was me. So, 1996. I don't think I have a month or anything written down as far as a composition date for this goes. January 30th, 1996. Okay, there we go. So it would have been winter quarter my freshman year. And I was not a music major that first year. I was a physics major. I thought I wanted to be an astrophysicist. I mean, I still do. The problem has always been the niggly little thing called math that my brain just don't do so well. So I switched majors my sophomore year to music, but kind of had figured out even prior to that really music was what I wanted to study. And during that freshman year, I was not taking the core curriculum for the music major. I was taking, I think, a couple of introduction to music classes. For the most part, it didn't really teach me a whole lot. I had started piano lessons when I was 10 or 11 years old, and so I had picked up some music theory and stuff along the way. So it was mostly teaching me stuff I already knew. But I was really enthusiastic about it, really excited about it, and realized this is what I want to do. So this first piece, the first several pieces actually, from 1996 and 1997, the first couple, I can't remember if I wrote them as school assignments or not. The next 3 after that, so all the ones from my college years, were all the ones after that anyway were school assignments. They were, kind of in lieu of writing essays or papers, we wrote compositions for music theory classes. So I thought I'd share a few of those. So this first one is called, I don't remember what I called it originally, if anything. Years and years and years later, I thought, this piece kind of sounds like some pieces, short little pieces by Beethoven, like little 30-second, 45-second long pieces called contradances, which he loved composing. They're just fun, jaunty little tunes. It's Contre-danse is how it's spelled, contradance. I don't know offhand what it means in English, but they're typically, they're short, light little dance type pieces, sprightly and lively. So yeah, like I said, years later, I wrote this, or I renamed this to Contradance in G from whatever its original title was. Something to notice in this and a couple of the following pieces that makes stuff a little more interesting is we have contrary motion. In other words, notes are going opposite directions as opposed to the same way. In other words, both hands going up versus both hands going, right hand going down, left hand going up. So it makes it a little more interesting. And I remember that was one of my music teacher's first comments, and expressed with some delight that, I think I had just kind of done this without any prompting. And it must not have been a typical thing for people to do, that I had a lot of contrary motion in this piece. And so even though there's only two voices, meaning only two notes sounding at any one time, as opposed to like big full chords like that, even though there's only two voices, I think it makes it a little more interesting that you've got this opposing motion. So let me switch my cameras here, and I will quit yammering and start playing.
Contradance is a kind of dance.
Okay, so Amanda says that a contradance is a kind of dance.
They dance. It's kind of like square dancing, but not like they dance. It's a long line of dancers.
Okay, so it's kind of okay. She says, I don't know how much you can hear her on the mics, but she says it's a long line of dancers. It's kind of like square dancing or maybe line dancing, but
it's older.
But facing each other, and it obviously much older. It would be from the 7th or 18th century, possibly 17th century. I don't know how far back it goes, huh?
It also has a collar too, like square dancing, but
Oh, it has a collar like in square dancing.
but obviously different kind of moves.
Yeah, very very different moves from square dancing.
Square dances more free.
Okay, so she says that contra dances are more choreographed, square dances are freer. Yeah, kind of interesting. A precursor perhaps to the much later square dance. Sorry, just getting tangled up with my cord here. That's it for that. Get my mic back here. Just a kind of a fun, cute little piece I wrote. I'm pretty sure it was something of a school assignment. I really got to stop closing these files when I'm done with them, because one thing I've noticed is that my remote control, it really easily picks up what I think is a single click of the button. It picks it up as a double click and then ends up closing two files instead of the single one I meant to close. Let me just pop this back over here. There we go. I get everything back in the right order. Let's see. Uh-oh, Hunter said something. What did Hunter say? I don't even see Hunter's name in here. Yeah, I'll look at it later. All right, so this next piece, this is one that was written in March of 1996, a couple months later, I think probably the next quarter. And it's entitled Theme and Variations in C minor. However, there's only one variation. I think, I'm not really sure why I never wrote more. The intent was certainly to write more variations. So for those who don't know, a theme and variations consists of a musical theme, in this case, and then so you have, however long that theme is, it's usually a good 30 seconds or so, maybe 45 seconds ish. Not normally longer than a minute. That starts to get a bit lengthy. What I was emulating were themes and variations written by Beethoven and Mozart, some of the other great masters of the craft. And they would oftentimes write anywhere from 6 to 12 to 20 or 30 variations, depending on the length of the theme and just how long they wanted the piece to be. I mean, Beethoven was well known for his ingenious variations. I mean, the guy could just go on forever. He could make variations out of anything. For whatever reason, I don't know if I got bored or if I just didn't know what else to do with it, but I only wrote one variation for this. And again, this was written while I was taking music appreciation classes at Davis. I don't recall if this was an actual assignment. I don't think we had music writing assignments in that class because it wasn't a music major class. But nevertheless, I wrote it while taking that class and play for you guys now. So that is the theme and variations. Obviously the theme is, and the variation is very similar sounding. You can obviously hear a lot of the same things happen, basically all the same things happen in the variation as you heard in the theme. Typically what composers would do is they start to get further and further into their variations on the theme, is they'll start making, they might make a major variation of it. Sounds very different. It has to be modified somewhat in order for it to really work. You can't just move it over to C major instead of C minor and expect the whole thing to work. And another technique was to make variations of variations. So they'd start, tweaking stuff in one variation, and they'd take that and pretend, okay, this is kind of like my theme now, and I'm going to make a variation on this, and end up really far afield from where they started. So anyhow, that was my little theme and variation, singular, in C minor, written in March of '96. Moving on, the next piece is one that I wrote in 1997. Trying to get a little pop-up thing here to pop up the file name, and it's not cooperating. Let's see. This was... Oh, okay. It's about a year later. This is March of 1997. This one is the first of at least the next two, and I think then all three of them, that was definitely written as a school assignment. I have played this on one of the Vaudacity shows before. This is, I called it Nocturne in E flat, written emulating Chopin, although it changes keys a bit more frequently than Chopin would have. I don't recall which show I've played this on, but I have played this one before. So hope you guys like it. pretending in my head right now that there's that audience clapping and cheering stuff going on, like when Sam hits the button. So I'm pretending it's happening. Hope you guys like that. That's my Nocturne in E flat written. I think the assignment was to write something in the style of Chopin or something similar. We were studying that period of music. So that's what I came up with. And it's funny going back and playing some of these really old pieces of mine. I really need to update the notation of the piece. A couple of these scores that I'm playing off of are scans of my original handwritten copy. And then the rest of them are ones that I put in the computer a long time ago. There used to be this program, I don't know if it's still around or if a version of it's still around, but it was called Cakewalk. And it was music notation software, but it was really aimed at people who wanted to do MIDI work. So it had a musical notation component to it, but it wasn't the main focus of the program. So it was awkward to use, and I was not trained in any way, shape, or form in its use. I was figuring it out as I went. And there were certain things I never figured out how to do in it. One of those things was, I believe anyway, was putting in what are called accidentals. When you have a musical score, it's written in a certain key. For instance, the key of C, there's no extra notations on the staff. You just have a set of bar lines, and the notes correspond to the white keys on the piano. If you're in the key of, say, G minor, all of a sudden you're throwing in a couple of black keys. And so those are typically noted at the beginning of each line of music, so they don't have to be written in on every single note they would appear next to. They're typically written in at the beginning of each line of music. And so you see that, and as a musician you say, okay, I'm in that key, and I know which notes on the keyboard to play to stay in that key. If I'm putting in what's called an accidental, that means I'm making a temporary modification to one of the notes on the line of music that's not part of the key signature at the beginning of the line. So in other words, that note there is not part of the G minor key signature, so I'd have to add that as a modification. That was something that I hadn't figured out how to do. So what ends up happening in some of these early scores is I change keys constantly to a key signature that has the note in it that I want, and then change back. So actually one of my other pieces, I think might even be the next one, has that, where it's like every other measure the key signature is changing, which is ridiculous. Most of the time the piece stays in the same key signature for the majority of it, if not all of it. And maybe if you have like a middle section or something, it's in a contrasting key, then you change it, and then it goes back to the original. So this particular piece, the one I just played, wasn't quite as bad in that respect. But yeah, this next one, this Prelude and D Minor that I wrote, oh gosh, let's see. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8 key signature changes in the space of a page and a half. Oh, somebody's asking if I had to perform these. I did in the music classes. It was not something that I did as part of the, as part of any like concert or anything at school. I actually didn't perform piano at all when I was at Davis. Amanda's still kind of amazed that I got away with that.
How do you have a degree?
Yeah, she's wondering how I have a degree.
I think that that should not count.
Okay, so apparently my degree in Amanda's eyes is not valid because I never had to perform
You could be a
piano.
performance major if you
I wasn't a performance major.
Oh, what were you?
I was just like a general music major. So when I was at Davis, I should back up here and explain a bit. The music program was very, very, very small when I was at Davis. It's actually one of the reasons why Amanda and I are still very good friends with a bunch of people that we went to college with whom we went to college. There we go. It's because the music classes were so small, and certainly when I was there, where it was almost like being in elementary school again. You're with the same like 10 or 15 people for several years in a row, so you kind of hope you like them. There were a couple of people that was like, God, I wish they weren't in my class, but what are you going to do? Including one guy who came to class high one day and he had to give a presentation, and I think he accused our teacher of lying. That's what he accused her of. He accused her of lying during his presentation. That was a memorable class. Anyhow, long tangent. Yes, I did perform, but that last one I played, this next one, I don't recall. If, I did perform, at least for the professors, the first two pieces I played. They definitely heard those. And then for my classes, I performed the one I just played and this next one. The last one in the set, I honestly don't remember if I performed it for class or not. It's not that great a piece, but I thought I'd throw it in because it's interesting. So, uh-oh.
Hunter says, well, what was he high on? That makes all the difference.
Oh, what was he high on? Well, Hunter, my friend, when I was in college, I lived under a rock. I knew of drugs as this nebulous thing along with alcohol that was...
Drugs, no such.
Oh, yeah, I guess it kind of blended together with alcohol, which I guess maybe you can do in real life. You mix some weed in with your booze. No, I have no idea what he was high on. Probably marijuana, but who knows? I mean,
It's pretty tame.
I've led a very sheltered, tame life, and I'm very happy with it. I discovered alcohol at the ripe young age of 26. I was when I had my first drink, and it's like, oh, I like this stuff. So Hunter, at least when we visited, at least I was swigging whiskey out of a bottle, because I got home and looked at Amanda and said, can you ever imagine anybody other than somebody like Hunter getting me to swig whiskey out of a bottle? Congrats. All right, so Prelude in D Minor. This is another one that the intent, I think, was to emulate Chopin. This is also... So the last piece, this one, and the next one were all written in 1997. I did have to write compositions for other music classes that I took later on, 1998, 1999. But at that point, we were studying periods of music whose styles I didn't really, like or really identify with very much. And so those compositions I don't particularly like. I wasn't enthused about writing them. And especially when you get into 20th century stuff like Schoenberg and the whole tone scale, which basically just says you've got all these notes in the scale. If you just play them like that, there's 12 notes total. And the whole tone scale just means you have to play each note once before you can play it again. And while I can recognize the brilliance of some of Schoenberg's pieces, I may have said this on a previous show, it's like he never stopped to consider whether or not it was pleasant to listen to. And it isn't. And so, we were having to write, there's an octatonic scale, which I forget what that is, but we had to write pieces and all these using these different methods and scales and all that. And I just didn't like any of the stuff I wrote after 97. So it's Prelude D Minor. Also, I believe emulating Chopin. He famously wrote a set of 24 preludes. I think there's actually 26. 24 of them were published together, and the other two were published later in his life. And following in the footsteps of Johann Sebastian Bach, who famously wrote preludes and fugues in all the major and minor keys. He did that twice, 24 pieces in each set, and so that just became kind of a bar that composers would try and write shorter form pieces in all the major and minor keys. So Chopin did it with preludes. I believe he did it with his etudes, and a number of other composers had kind of followed suit. So Prelude D Minor, interesting little piece that I wrote 24 years ago or so. Yeah, that's that little prelude. Prelude, incidentally, was a title Chopin and numerous other composers would use. And in the case of Bach, they were actual preludes. They were precursors to a piece that followed. By the time Chopin came along, Prelude was one of a bunch of different titles for just short form little pieces that didn't signify any particular form of music like a sonata would, or a contradance or something like that. It was just typically short little pieces, and they would call them preludes. Who knows why? So that's where that title came from. And it's interesting to me in that for whatever reason, I had the piece really centers around that note A and doesn't really move, at least the right-hand part, doesn't really move very far away from it for the whole thing. I think I was kind of experimenting with how interesting can I make this and still have that one part just kind of hanging out in the same spot. Hopefully it was interesting. Hopefully it was cool. Hey, Amanda says that was cool. So I did not see that comment until just now. Hey, super chat from Barbara. Thank you. Thanks for being me. Yay. Thank you so much. So make sure I didn't miss anything else. No. Okay. Oops. All right. So this next piece, and this is the last of the 1990s era pieces. This one is written in, the attempt was in the style of Liszt. Now, this is from somebody who very much lacks the technical ability of Liszt. Liszt was one of the best pianists in the history of the entire instrument and really drove a whole new way of playing. He invented an entirely new way of playing the piano, which was just unheard of at the time. So I've been playing a lot of his Hungarian Rhapsodies, or at least the bits that I could play, and came up with this composition, which is kind of fun. It has a very, very, very abrupt ending, and I think it was because I wasn't sure what else to do with it, and I was tired of writing it, so I just slapped an ending on that kind of happens out of nowhere. It's an example of one I don't consider one of my better pieces, but I thought it'd be fun to share. This is also written this is June of 97, so right around the end of that school year. All right, a sudden door slam ending of my attempt at a Hungarian Rhapsody. And incidentally, the Rhapsodies, that piece sounds very disjointed, and there is a reason why. Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsodies, as they are commonly known, are a set of 19 compositions that he wrote over, I think, a number of years. But what a lot of people don't realize is that along with a whole uncountable other piano pieces, he reworked them a bunch of times. And so originally they started out as a collection of like 25 or 30 separate compositions. And to arrive, I think there's like 3 different published versions of them. So the first one has a whole bunch of shorter compositions, and then the second version, and then the third versions, which is the one everybody knows. Those he had started stitching together these otherwise disparate compositions that really had nothing to do with each other. He just kind of put them together. And so that was the feel I was going for here, just a lot less skillfully. And I saw another super chat from my mom, and she says, "You are amazing. Thank you. I know." Okay, I just had to do that. Thank you, Mom. Appreciate it. It's seriously, it's so much fun just to be able to share this stuff with people. These pieces exist on my bookcase over there in printed form. They exist, of course, on the computer. I recorded a lot of them years and years ago, not very well. And gave CDs back in the days of CDs, gave CDs to people of those recordings. Now that I have a real piano, I really probably ought to re-record a lot of these. So yes, Steve, interesting composition. Yeah, I would characterize it as interesting. I did play that for my music class because I remember my music professor, after I played it, said, "Well, you certainly got the style right." I still don't really know if that was a compliment or not. I kind of think it probably wasn't. What are you going to do? That was, not the last piece I wrote for college, but the last one of what I'm playing tonight. So now, moving on. Okay, my mom says, yes, please record. So, yeah, I'll have to do that one of these days. Moving on, we fast forward about 15 years to 2012. And I don't really remember what the impetus was, but like 2009, 2010, somewhere in that neighborhood, I just kind of decided I wanted to start writing music again. Since I stopped college, since I graduated college, I had a degree and everything. I didn't write anything after I graduated from Davis between then and about 2010, 2011. So this next set of pieces, these are all entitled Prelude. There's 12 of them. I don't know if I'm going to play all 12 of them tonight, simply because a few of them are actually kind of challenging and I haven't had a lot of practice time. Originally, these pieces in conception were titled children's pieces, and I've mentioned before, because I think I've played a couple of them on other shows, that they were written for Amanda's piano students to play, and she teaches, little munchkins. Well, I kind of overestimated what little munchkins could play, which, when Amanda started seeing the music I was turning out for her little munchkins to play, she just started laughing and said the little munchkins were not going to be able to ever play that, not until they got older and got bigger hands. So after, I don't know, I was still trying to push them off as children's pieces for children to play up until the 7th one. And when I started writing that, it's just, forget it. This is, obviously, they're not going to be what I thought they were. So I renamed all of them Preludes. A couple of them have their own individual titles. Let's see. Well, Hunter says, what was the subtext there? It sucked, but it sucked in Hungarian. Yeah, pretty much. I got the style right and not very skillfully. And in terms of compositional structure, it was pretty terrible. But hey, it's got style. So this next piece is a shorter one. These first several are actually shorter out of the set of 12 preludes. And the opening of it, this is why I mentioned it was intended as children's pieces, because the opening is, so it's what's called parallel motion, meaning the hands are going the same direction at the same time, and the intervals are octaves as opposed to being, I don't know, like a fifth or seventh or sixth or something. The intervals are all, so you're playing the same notes with each hand is what it comes down to. That lasts for about 2 measures, and then I kind of throw a little monkey wrench into things as far as kids are concerned. So this is Prelude Number One, A minor, written according to my very specific date here. I'm surprised I didn't put a timestamp on it. September 21st, 2012. I think honestly at the time I was putting those kind of dates on stuff because I thought, what if I'm ever famous and some musicologist wants to know all the details about my past life? Yeah. So there you have it. That's the first out of that set of pieces. Yeah, obviously it's not something a little kid was going to be able to play. You got syncopation, you got parallel thirds in both hands, and yeah, I have trouble with it sometimes. Amanda's giving me this knowing smile, like, yeah. Next one up, and incidentally, all of these pieces, from here on out, these were written for fun. I haven't written anything in a while. It's been a couple of years, but something I will probably get back to at some point. I don't necessarily like the process, but the result is a lot of fun. And incidentally, Hunter, a piece that I'm going to play on a future show when I have time to practice it is this etude I wrote. That piece took me about a year and change to write. So you had mentioned, this recent song you've written took you a long time to write it. I think about the same amount of time. So I get it. It took me a very long time to figure out what I wanted to do with that. So that is something I will play for you guys at some point when I've had time to practice it. And I feel reasonably confident that I can do it some justice. Because believe it or not, what I just played was the easy part. So next piece up for tonight is Prelude in C major. I entitled it after Kuhlau. If you tuned into my sonata show, you heard me play a few pieces by Kuhlau, Friedrich Kuhlau, a Danish composer from a little bit after Mozart, kind of early Beethoven time period, so very late 1700s, early 1800s. And I absolutely adore his piano music. He wrote some stuff. It's just fun stuff to play. He and Clementi, Muzio Clementi, an Italian composer from around the same time period as Mozart, just wrote little sonatinas and sonatas that are just a blast to play. So this piece was intentionally emulating that style. I initially called it after Mozart and then realized that it's really not Mozartian. It's got a bit more Kuhlau than Mozart. So renamed it. This was written November of 2012, so just a couple months after the first one I just played. Yay! That was a fun little piece to play. And incidentally, you may have noticed an unusual feature in the middle of that A minor section, that bit there. That section has an ending. That is called a Picardy third. I don't know. Amanda might know. I don't know offhand where the name came from, other than something to do with France, I'm guessing. Probably something that was maybe a commonly used little technique or something in a particular region, so it ended up being named after that region. I'd sometimes like to call it the Piccadilly third, just for fun and to throw people off, see if they're paying attention. Anyhow, I threw it in there just because, yeah, it just makes it... makes it a little more interesting. What's up, Amanda?
So it was first used in 1768 by Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Ah, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was the first one to use it in 1768. I'm a scholar.
Idea came before there.
Yeah. So obviously, Amanda's just saying the idea happened prior to that. He was just the first one on record using it.
The term is used jokingly by musicians, suggesting it might not ever have had an academic basis or a tangible origin. It might have just been a joke.
Oh, okay. So it may have just been a joke. Afraid it's a little bit lost on us modern audiences, but there you go. All right, next up. This is a piece I originally wrote. Actually, this is a piece, if you watched Hunter's Lovecast when Amanda and I were visiting, this is the piece that I played during that Lovecast. I'm going to play for you the revised version of it. So I originally wrote it September 14th, 2012. So even though I've numbered it number 3 in my set of preludes, it was written prior to the one I just played. When I revised it, the reason why I revised it was it consists of very slow chords. It's called Prayer. It's very slow chords. And so forth. But then it picks up a little bit of speed. So there's this whole section where you've got a little bit more of a drive to it. And then it goes back to the beginning again. And in the original version, it just kind of abruptly... to me, it felt like it hit a wall. So this momentum it had, even though it wasn't much, it just kind of stops. And then it picks up again a few measures later. But having that it just felt weird, having this kind of little trip or hiccup in the music. So what I ended up doing was, in the end, I took a chunk, a short chunk of it, and moved it to the end. And in so doing, actually eliminated a measure. I was sitting here looking at it prior to the show tonight, trying to figure out why the later version was one measure shorter than the previous version. It took me quite a while to find why that was the case. And it was just, it was a lead in to the measure was a lead into the ending that was no longer needed once I took that little chunk and moved it to the end. So by moving that chunk to the end, it comes out of the middle section, having some of this, and so it goes back to the opening, skipping over the first few measures of the opening and to a portion of the opening where it helps retain some of that drive. And then as the piece goes on, it can kind of back off of that, and it's more symmetrical, and it's just a smoother presentation overall. So originally written in 2012, and then I revised it in May of 2016. So 4 years later. Probably not that it took me 4 years to think of it, probably more it took me 4 years to get around to writing it down. Yeah, that's actually honestly one of my favorite compositions out of all of them. Just love it. So let's see, this next one. Wow, we're already at 8:30.
You should read your mom's comment.
Oh, Amanda says I should read my mom's comment. Oh, Love Cast Less Than Sober, was that the one? No. That's the first one I saw. Actually, that would have been the one. Let's see. Maybe that one. Okay, so this next piece, I'm going to play through a few more. I'll leave out the longer, more difficult ones out of the set and pick those up on a later show. This next one is one that I entitled Stream. And this was an exercise in writing something that's kind of in two keys at once. In other words, something like that. C major and F major at the same time. And it's just sort of a light, dreamy sort of piece. And I would, and this was written in October of 2012. So this is I'll play this for Grandmom. I'd like to dedicate this performance to you, and hope you enjoy watching it. I apologize. I'm going to start that over. I completely lost where I was on the page. I don't know how. Literally the first time I've ever done that. So, yeah, I'm gonna reset here. And so I would reset. So my mom's going to play this for my grandmother at some point here in the next few days, probably. So, Grandmom, I would like to dedicate this performance to you. I hope you enjoy listening to it. This piece is called Stream. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's also one of my favorite pieces. And incidentally, there's a hidden Easter egg in this one. Salient point, The title of it is Stream. Fortunately, nobody. I didn't do it tonight, but I've often played this for people and said beforehand, there is a very, very, very well-known melody in here. You will absolutely know it when I separate it out. Let me know if you figure it out. This context doesn't really work very well. It's this bit here at the end. Let's see. Help if I played the right notes. Anybody recognize what's in there? Anybody? Play it in a sec here. So if we eliminate the left-hand part, we just take the right-hand part and... Somebody got it.
Don't forget you're behind, or they're behind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people are behind. I do forget that, actually. So, bingo. Well, my mom already knew it, but Melissa Catano, cha-ching, you got it. It's... And I think that's in there just because I was writing this and thought that'd be kind of fun to throw in, and then decided to name the piece "Stream" as a clue to what's in there. Oh man! Something else. Okay, she had a funny expression on her face. What?
It's just a funny joke.
Oh, okay, a funny joke. Oh, I want to be in on the joke. All right. Next piece. This is one I played on one of my shows a couple episodes ago. I opened with it. It's called Humoresque. It's for left hand only, and I don't even know what led to this one. It's kind of an odd little piece, but Humoresque was a title used by Rachmaninoff, a few other composers. Just typically short, almost joking pieces. They have some jauntiness to them, and kind of hard to describe without actually playing them. So for whatever reason, I wrote this for left hand alone. Humoresque in G major. That's another fun little one. Like I said, no idea where that came from. That was I wrote that in May of 2015, so a little bit later than the other ones. Oh, I think I must have revised it in 2015. I don't know if I really changed any of the notes, but the original tempo is actually substantially slower than that, and I just found I was playing it a lot faster, so I officially updated the tempo. Let's see, we've got time for not that one. I think I'll do two more. The other ones, yeah, that one's not really quite ready yet to perform. So this one is intended to emulate Johann Sebastian Bach. He wrote a whole slew of pieces he called inventions. They are two-part contrapuntal harmony, meaning there's only two notes being played at any one time. And they're contrapuntal, meaning each line is kind of its own self-contained thing, but they weave together. And Bach was absolutely brilliant at constructing pieces this way. His counterpoint is unmatched by anybody, before or during or since. I mean, the guy is just the best ever at it, in my opinion. So this was my attempt to write something kind of in the style of Bach. Now, it does some things that Bach never would have thought to do. Some key changes and some syncopations and things like that he never would have written. So it's very much a modern composition. but still kind of an homage to Bach. And so what you'll hear throughout this piece is this is the main sort of subject. These pieces would have like fugues, inventions, sinfonias, which were 3-part harmony, meaning 3 notes being played at any one time. They would have typically a subject, a musical theme, an idea. And especially in the case of inventions, what we hear is the subject coming in all by itself. So that's our subject. And then you'll hear it again in the left hand. So it's what we call imitation, where the 2 parts are imitating each other. And so when the left hand comes in, the right hand starts doing something different. And then there's a section, it's called a series, where you have where you're doing the same sort of pattern, you're just kind of scooting it up and down the keyboard for each iteration of it. And so you're going to hear a lot of that. One of the other techniques used in this piece that Bach would use is called inversion, where you have the main theme again, but in this case, in my case here, it's minor, and the notes are going the opposite direction. So where the original went up, this one goes down, and vice versa. So instead of having, we have, and creates, obviously, ooh, this is something new. So listen for that if you can as you listen to this, and hopefully I'll play it well enough. There's a lot of stuff going on in this one. This is 2-part invention, Prelude number 6 in A minor. That's my invention, two-part invention, kind of in the style of Bach. And hopefully my little talk beforehand helped fill you in on some of the stuff that was going on in there, and it helps direct the listening. And then for the final piece tonight, because we're coming up on 8:45, this is another kind of a dreamy one. This one has its origins in a song. So a friend of Amanda's of mine, one Dylan Thomas, not that Dylan Thomas. This is a different Dylan Thomas, Dylan F. Thomas. The guy's an opera director. He's a singer. He's an incredible musician and performer. And he also writes poetry. And he had written a number of poems that he sent along to me. I set a couple of them to music. So that's where this, as you'll notice, there's no vocal part for this piece. That's where this came from. This was the original idea for just the piano part, actually, for this song. There's actually going to be a vocal line. Well, there is a vocal line on top of it in the song version. But I decided that the piano part sounded kind of cool all by itself. And I don't know, after the first page or so, the song and the piano piece diverge. But prior to that, they're pretty similar. So the standalone piano piece, this is number 8 in my set of preludes, written in September 2016, so about 5 years ago. And this one is also intentionally emulating a particular prelude by Chopin, the second prelude, which is E minor? I think it's an E minor. And it's the accompaniment pattern that really is what's emulating that prelude, because you have this sort of pattern where it's 2 notes close together, 2 notes further apart, and it alternates like that. His prelude uses that throughout a fairly short little piece. So this is called Reflections in, not really in any particular key. It's kind of in C major, kind of not. You'll see. And if Miss Lucy would please stop licking her hindquarters noisily on the couch, I will get started. Oh, it's her legs, sorry. Dogs. All right, so that was, yeah, started out life as a song for piano and voice and turned into that. And the song is, I think the song's finished, but like I said, diverges pretty sharply from that piece about midway through. And yeah, we're coming up on 9 p.m., so I think I'm going to call it a night there. And I've got 5 more preludes. These remaining 5, which I'll play on a future show, are 4 of them are a bit longer. One of them is pretty short. So we'll get to those in the future show, and I've got some other bit longer pieces. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I have 2 or 3 more shows worth. But if you liked what you heard tonight, if you haven't seen this before, please click on the subscribe button and click on the like video. And I'm doing this every other Tuesday, so next show will be the 19th of October, so in about 2 weeks. And I am going to do a Halloween-themed show. So you can bet that that's going to be on the menu, along with whatever else I can scare up. Get it? Scare? Huh? I guess I can switch my camera back over to the one right in front of me. Oh, good. So my original sound has been on this whole time. It's one of those little things that you're pretty sure you remember to turn it on. If it's not on, Zoom tries to do some artificial volume control that makes music sound terrible. So we want it on so Zoom isn't doing any of that stuff. And it's just one of those things that by default it's off. You have to remember to do it and forget sometimes. And anyhow, more detail than you needed. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Well, thank you, Hunter. That was one of the most beautiful pieces he's ever heard while typing the word hindquarters. I'm curious to know if the context for that hindquarters word is in the chat somewhere or if it's something external to our evening together tonight. But in any case, I'm glad it's the most beautiful you've ever thing while typing the word whilst, I don't know, not British, typing the word hindquarters. Achievement unlocked. Thanks for joining me tonight, guys, and then be sure to tune in 2 weeks on Tuesday. Tune in 2 weeks on Tuesday. Wow. Good alliteration there for some Halloween music. And I'll say goodnight. Oh, and incidentally, the stream's not going to stop right away. Paul's running the show, and he's got his own thing he's doing, so I just told him I was going to turn my camera off when I'm done, and then he'll stop the stream at some point in time. Good night, guys.